China has expressed outrage over Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen's meeting with U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy in California earlier this week. Beijing is accusing the U.S. of, quote, crossing the line and acting provocatively. In response, China launched military drills near that self-governing island, and Taipei says Beijing deployed 3 Chinese warships and Coast Guard vessels in the Taiwan Strait. As fear grows about China's military intentions, Canada and the U.S. are seeking to strengthen vital economic supply chains. U.S. Democratic Senator Chris Coons was in Toronto this week, and I asked him how concerned he is about a potential war breaking out in the Indo-Pacific.
I'm very concerned about the potential for escalation and for conflict. One of the reasons that we in Congress worked so hard to pass the Bipartisan Chips and Science Act, which creates significant incentives for the onshoring and nearshoring of the production of semiconductors and other key technologies, is because of the risks of supply chain interruption. We've just come through a very difficult pandemic that had real challenges for Canada and the United States. And one of the things that many of us realized was that our supply chains for critical resources, whether it's semiconductors or critical minerals, pharmaceuticals or other things, was too reliant on China. And so during the period when Chinese trade largely shut down, many of us discovered that we were over-reliant. One of the big conversations here at the conference in Toronto I'm attending is on critical minerals and the ways that the United States and Canada, and hopefully at some point Mexico, our key USMCA partner as well, can continue to be the sort of energy and innovation partners for each other that we have long been. But we may well find the next chapter in the energy transformation of North America to be one where Canada has the answer to many of the questions being asked in America about how will we have a reliable partner for the rare earths and the critical minerals that are currently overwhelmingly mined and processed in China, mined in the rest of the world.
There's China as an unreliable partner, then there's also China as a potential aggressor. And when you look at Taiwan and the reliance there as well, and the vulnerabilities there, I mean, how real do you see the risk moving forward of a potential armed incursion by China into Taiwan?
Well, perhaps I should have been more explicit about this. Taiwan is the world leader in semiconductor chip manufacturing. Part of why the United States passed the Chips and Science Act and is working hard with our partners and allies to onshore and nearshore semiconductor production is because of concerns that Taiwan is facing increasing pressure from China. We are concerned about the very real possibility that we will face armed conflict in the Indo-Pacific. Russia's brutal invasion and occupation of significant parts of Ukraine has awakened a lot of the world to the potential of autocracies to express themselves through violence. And so I think we are rethinking our strategic plans. I know Canada, as well as an Indo-Pacific power, is a critical part of that future. Our closest and most trusted partner and neighbor, friend, and ally, the United States and Canada, need to be working even more closely together to create a security environment and an economic environment of opportunity, and where free and open societies have an advantage in this century.
In part as a response to what's happening with China, the U.S., the U.K., Australia, you formed this trilateral security partnership, AUKUS. Is that a partnership that could be expanded in the future? Is that something Canada could come to the table and be a part of?
I think we should be looking hard at ways that Canada can continue to be an exporter of security. Canada is a critical Arctic partner for the United States. Canada and the United States, through NORAD, have one of the most closely integrated national and air defense systems in the world, and it would make sense for me, for Canada, which is one of our Five Eyes intelligence partners, to also be a partner in Indo-Pacific security as well going forward.
Do you think the country is doing enough on that, sir? I mean, we're into the second year of the war in Ukraine. We do have the Indo-Pacific challenges emerging, and we're well below the 2% NATO spending target. I know there's an acceleration on some NORAD capacity after the president's visit recently. Is Canada doing enough on defense as far as you're concerned?
Well, I think that's a decision for Canada and the Canadian people to make. But I am satisfied that we have a close partnership and alliance, that we are making progress towards improving our security. Obviously, the recent intrusion of a Chinese spy balloon was a reminder for us that the world is not as safe and secure as many of us might hope. Canada's been a terrific partner in training and funding and supporting Ukraine as they are resisting Russian aggression. I do think there's more that we can and should do together in the Arctic and in the Indo-Pacific.
You mentioned that at this conference you're at, you're speaking heavily on critical minerals. This was an acute focus of the recent federal budget just released here in Ottawa to try to impart a response to the challenges of the Inflation Reduction Act, but also to help accelerate this shift towards a North American supply chain. There is a concern domestically that the approval processes for mining and critical mineral extractions in this country simply take too long. And that in terms of being a reliable supplier of these minerals, the processes here aren't quick enough. Do you have any thoughts on that or any concerns about how quickly Canadian critical minerals can get into the marketplace?
Well, if they take a long time in Canada, they take a much longer time in the United States. We do not have a good track record at review and permitting and approval, particularly in the mining sector recently in the United States. And we have to strike the right balance between respect for Indigenous communities, consultation and inclusion, making sure that environmental protection and higher standards for mining and processing are a part of our future. But I do think that Canada, which is blessed with abundant natural resources, and the United States, which shares in common remarkable mineral legacy in the Rocky Mountains and throughout our two countries, we have to find ways to innovate in recycling, to accelerate in terms of our permitting, and to cooperate and partner in terms of processing. So that was one of the most interesting panels I heard at this conference today. Toronto is a mining and financial center for Canada and for North America, and I think this was a great place to hold this conference for exactly that reason. And I do think both of our countries have work to do in terms of accelerating permitting opportunities.
Senator Chris Coons, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Great to be on.